A powerful CEO, secretly pretending to be homeless, watches as a young woman defends him against security guards trying to push him away. What she does next changes everything. But to understand why that moment mattered so much, we have to go back to a freezing winter morning in downtown Chicago. The wind cut sharply between the skyscrapers. People rushed past, collars pulled tight, coffee cups in hand, eyes fixed ahead. No one stopped. No one looked. Except one man, standing across the street from a towering glass building with bold letters at the top. Reid Global. That building wasn't just another corporate headquarters. It was his. Marcus Reid. At 39, Marcus was everything people admired. Self-made, disciplined, powerful. A billionaire CEO who had built his company from nothing. Late nights, endless risks, relentless focus. That was his story. And to the outside world, it looked perfect. But standing there that morning, Marcus didn't feel proud. He felt uneasy, because over the past few months, something had been bothering him. Not profits, not competitors, not expansion. People. It started small. A few emails, then more. Complaints from customers and even employees. Not about the service, not about the business, but about behavior. Security guards being aggressive. Employees ignoring people in need. Cold attitudes. No empathy. At first, Marcus dismissed it. Every large company has issues. But then, he saw the video. A shaky phone recording. A homeless man sitting quietly near the company entrance. Not bothering anyone. Not asking for anything. Just sitting. Then security approached. Voices raised. Hands grabbing. Pushing him away. And what hurt the most wasn't the guards. It was everyone else. Employees walking past. Looking. Then looking away. Like nothing was happening. Marcus replayed that video more times than he could count. Because something about it didn't sit right. This company was built on values. Respect. Opportunity. Humanity. So how did it become this? Most CEOs would send out memos. Launch internal investigations. Hold meetings. Marcus chose something different. He decided to see the truth himself. The next morning, no one recognized him. The tailored suits were gone. The expensive watch removed. His hair slightly messy. Face unshaven. Clothes worn, faded, and thin against the cold. He looked like someone life had forgotten. A homeless man. Marcus sat on the sidewalk just outside his own company. Back against the cold wall. Hands slightly trembling from the winter air. And for the first time in years, he wasn't invisible because of power. He was invisible because of lack of it. People passed. Fast. Focused. Busy. Some glanced at him briefly, then looked away. Others avoided eye contact completely. A few pulled their coats tighter, as if his presence made them uncomfortable. Marcus said nothing, did nothing, just observed. Within the first hour, he understood everything. Respect was conditional. Kindness was selective. And humanity depended on status. A group of employees walked out together, laughing. One of them accidentally dropped a piece of paper near Marcus. It slid toward his feet. He picked it up, held it out. "Excuse me," he said quietly. The man glanced at him, hesitated, then took it without a word. "No thank you." No acknowledgement. They walked away, still laughing. Marcus lowered his hand slowly. Not angry, not surprised, just aware. Then came the security guards. Two of them, watching him carefully. Suspicious, uncomfortable. One stepped forward. "You can't stay here," he said. Marcus looked up calmly. "I'm not bothering anyone." "That doesn't matter," the guard replied. "Move along." Marcus didn't argue, didn't resist. He simply stood up and walked a few steps away, then sat again. This time, the guard didn't approach immediately, but his eyes never left him. Hours passed. The cold deepened. Marcus felt it in his hands, his feet, his bones. But he stayed, because now, this wasn't just an experiment. It was a reality he had never truly understood. Then, something changed. Around midday, as employees began stepping out for lunch, a young woman walked through the glass doors. Unlike the others, she wasn't rushing. Her pace was steady, her expression calm. She carried a small paper bag in her hand. Her name was Elena Cruz, 27, junior analyst. Hardworking, quiet, the kind of person most people overlooked in a corporate environment, but the kind of person who noticed everything. As she stepped outside, her eyes moved across the sidewalk and landed on Marcus, sitting there, cold, alone. She stopped, just for a moment. But that moment mattered, because most people didn't even give him that. Elena hesitated, then walked toward him. Every step slow, intentional. Marcus noticed, but didn't react, because by now, he had learned not to expect anything. She stopped in front of him. "Hi," she said softly. Marcus looked up, surprised, because no one had spoken to him like that all day. "Are you okay?" she asked. Simple words, but they carried something rare. Concern. Marcus nodded slightly. "I'm fine." Elena didn't move. Instead, she crouched down slightly and held out the paper bag. "I brought extra lunch," she said. "You can have it." Marcus blinked. For a moment, he didn't speak, because after hours of being ignored, someone had chosen to see him, and he didn't know yet that this small moment would change everything. Before we continue with this incredible journey, I spent countless hours researching and crafting this story to bring you something truly meaningful. If stories like this touch your heart, and you want to see more acts of kindness that restore faith in humanity, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. It truly helps these stories reach others who need to hear them. Now, let's see what happens next. For a moment, the city noise faded. Cars still passed. People still walked by. The cold wind still cut through the streets. But for Marcus Reid, everything slowed down. Because someone had stopped. The young woman stood in front of him, holding out a small paper bag. "I brought extra," she said again gently. Marcus looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't dressed like someone wealthy. Simple coat. Work badge hanging from her neck. Slight tiredness in her eyes. But her expression was different from everyone else. There was no discomfort. No judgment. Just sincerity. "You don't have to do that," Marcus said quietly. Elena gave a small shrug. "I know." She smiled slightly. "But I want to." Marcus hesitated. Not because he didn't want the food, but because he wasn't used to receiving anything without expectation. Slowly, he reached out and took the bag. "Thank you," he said. Elena nodded. "You're welcome." She didn't rush away. Didn't check her phone. Didn't act like she had done something unusual. She simply stayed there for a moment. "What's your name?" she asked. Marcus paused, just for a second, then answered carefully. "Mark." He chose a simpler version, a name that wouldn't carry weight. "I'm Elena," she said. He nodded. "I know." She smiled, slightly confused. "My badge," he added. She glanced down and laughed softly. "Right." Elena sat on the edge of the low concrete barrier nearby. Not too close. Not too far. Just enough to show she wasn't afraid. "You've been here all morning," she said. Marcus nodded. "Yeah. You don't have anywhere to go?" The question wasn't harsh. It was careful, respectful. Marcus shook his head slightly. "Not right now." Elena looked down for a moment, then back at him. "That must be hard." Marcus gave a small, almost invisible smile. "You get used to it." It wasn't entirely true, but it was what people expected to hear. Elena studied him. "You shouldn't have to get used to it," she said quietly. That sentence stayed with him, because it wasn't pity. It was perspective. Marcus opened the paper bag. Inside was a sandwich, a bottle of water, and a small fruit cup. Simple, but thoughtful. "You gave me your lunch," he said. Elena shook her head. "I can grab something else later." Marcus looked at her. "You didn't have to." She smiled again. "Yeah, but if I didn't, I'd spend the whole day thinking about it." They sat in silence for a moment, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was calm. Then suddenly, "Hey!" A sharp voice broke the moment. One of the security guards approached quickly. "We told you earlier, you can't stay here." Marcus looked up slowly. "I'm not causing any trouble." "That doesn't matter," the guard said firmly. "This is private property." Elena stood up. "Excuse me," she said. The guard turned. "This doesn't concern you, ma'am." "It does," she replied calmly. "He's not doing anything wrong." The guard sighed. "We've had issues before. We can't allow people to just sit here." Elena crossed her arms slightly. "He's a person, not a problem." The words landed hard. The guard hesitated, clearly not expecting resistance. "He needs to move," he said again. Elena stepped slightly in front of Marcus. "Then I'll sit here too." Silence. Even Marcus was surprised. "You can't be serious," the guard said. Elena didn't back down. "If he leaves, I leave." The guard looked around. People were starting to notice. A few employees slowed down, watching. Finally, the guard exhaled. "Fine," he muttered. "But this isn't over." He walked away. Marcus sat there, still holding the paper bag, watching her, because in that moment, something shifted. All morning, he had seen people ignore him, people avoid him, people treat him like he didn't exist. But now, someone had done the opposite. You didn't have to do that, Marcus said quietly. Elena turned back to him. I know. Then why did you? She shrugged. Because it was the right thing. Marcus studied her face, looking for hesitation, looking for doubt. There was none. You could get in trouble, he said. Elena smiled slightly. For what? Being decent. That line stayed with him. Because it revealed something deeper. She wasn't being kind for attention. She wasn't trying to prove anything. This was just who she was. Marcus looked down at the food again, then back at her. You should at least share it, he said. Elena laughed softly. I already ate. I don't believe you. She smiled. Okay, maybe I didn't. Marcus broke the sandwich in half, handed her a piece. Then we both eat. Elena hesitated, then accepted. Deal. They sat there, sharing a simple meal, on a cold sidewalk, outside a billion-dollar company. And for the first time since the experiment began, Marcus didn't feel like an observer. He felt connected. Over the next few minutes, their conversation grew. Small questions, simple answers, but meaningful. You work there? Marcus asked, nodding toward the building. Yeah, Elena replied. Junior analyst. You like it? She paused. It's a job. Honest. Again. What about you? She asked. Marcus smiled faintly. I'm still figuring things out. She didn't press, didn't judge, just nodded. Because sometimes, understanding doesn't require explanations. From inside the building, through the glass doors, eyes were watching, employees whispering, security observing more closely, and somewhere above them, a system that had forgotten kindness was about to be challenged. Because Elena didn't realize something yet, something important. The man sitting beside her, sharing that sandwich, listening quietly, wasn't just another homeless stranger. He was the man who owned everything behind those glass doors. And very soon, that truth would come to light. What would you do if you saw someone being treated unfairly in public? Would you step in or stay silent? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. The next day, the cold returned. Just as sharp, just as unforgiving. Marcus was already there, sitting in the same spot. Same worn jacket, same quiet presence. But something was different. He wasn't just observing anymore. He was waiting, and right on time. The glass doors opened. Elena stepped out. Her eyes immediately scanned the sidewalk, until she saw him. A small smile appeared. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, just genuine. You're back, she said as she walked toward him. Marcus nodded. So are you. She laughed softly. Yeah, I guess we both are. This time, she didn't hesitate. She sat down beside him, closer than before, more comfortable. I brought something, she said, pulling out a small coffee cup. She handed it to him. Figured it's colder today. Marcus took it. Warmth spread through his hands instantly. But it wasn't just the coffee. It was the consistency. Thank you, he said. Elena shrugged. Don't make it a big deal. Marcus looked at her. But it is. She shook her head. It shouldn't be. That was the difference. To Marcus, it meant everything. To Elena, it was normal. Days passed. And what started as a single moment became a routine. Every lunch break, Elena came outside. Sometimes with food. Sometimes just to talk. And Marcus listened. He learned about her life. Long hours. Early mornings. Late nights. I worked 2 jobs, she admitted one afternoon. Marcus frowned slightly. 2. She nodded. Yeah, this one, and a small night shift at a bookstore. Why? She smiled faintly. Bills don't pay themselves. But that wasn't the full truth. And Marcus could tell. What are you really working toward, he asked. Elena hesitated, then finally said, I want to go back to school. For what? Social work. Marcus raised an eyebrow slightly. Social work? She nodded. I know it's not the highest paying job. She paused. But I've seen what happens when people don't have anyone looking out for them. Her voice softened. I want to be that person for someone. Marcus didn't respond immediately, because in that moment, he realized something powerful. She wasn't just kind by habit. She was kind by purpose. For the first time in years, Marcus began to feel something shift inside him. Not as a CEO, not as a businessman, but as a person. He found himself thinking differently, observing differently, feeling differently. Every interaction he had watched before now had context, because now he had seen the contrast. Coldness, and kindness, indifference, and empathy. And it all came back to one person, Elena. But not everyone saw things the same way. Inside the company, whispers began. That girl keeps talking to that homeless guy. Doesn't she know it looks bad? She's going to get herself in trouble. Some employees avoided her. Others judged quietly. A few laughed. But Elena didn't change. Because she wasn't doing it for them. Then one afternoon, everything shifted. Elena stepped outside like usual. But this time, she didn't make it far. Miss Cruz. A sharp voice stopped her. She turned. It was Mr. Dalton, head of building operations. Strict, cold, focused on image and control. I need to speak with you, he said. Inside the building, in a quiet office. The tone changed. I've been informed, he said, sitting behind his desk, that you've been spending time with an individual outside. Elena stayed calm. Yes. Dalton leaned forward. That individual is not authorized to be near company property. He's not doing anything wrong, Elena replied. That's not the point, Dalton said sharply. It affects the image of this company. Elena's expression tightened slightly. He's a human being. Dalton's face hardened. And you are an employee. Silence. You are to stop interacting with him immediately, Dalton continued. Or we will have to take further action. Elena walked out of that office with one thing clear. She had a choice. Her job, or her values. That evening, she stood outside again, looking at Marcus. He could see it in her face. Something was wrong. What happened, he asked. She hesitated, then told him everything. They said I could lose my job, she admitted. Marcus felt something tighten inside him. Because now, this wasn't just observation. This was consequence. You should do what's best for you, Marcus said quietly. Elena looked at him. Really looked. And what if what's best for me isn't what's easiest? That question hung in the air. Because the truth was, helping him now came with a cost. For the first time since this began, Marcus felt conflicted. He had started this to observe, to understand. But now, someone was being affected because of it. Someone who didn't deserve it. Elena. He could end it right now. Reveal who he was. Fix everything instantly. But something stopped him. Because he needed to know one thing. Was her kindness still real? When it became difficult. The next day, Marcus waited. Longer than usual. Lunch break came. People passed. Time moved. But Elena didn't appear. For a moment, Marcus thought, maybe this is where it ends. Maybe reality wins. Maybe kindness has limits. Then, the doors opened. And there she was. Walking toward him. Slowly. But surely. I guess I'm bad at following rules, she said, sitting down. Marcus looked at her. And in that moment, he understood something deeply. Kindness isn't easy. It's a choice. And she had just made hers. The air felt heavier the next morning. Not because of the cold, but because something was building. Inside Reid Global, tension had spread. Managers were stricter. Security was more alert. And word had quietly circulated. The CEO might be visiting soon. No one knew when. No one knew how. But everyone was on edge. Outside, Marcus sat in his usual spot. Watching. Waiting. Thinking. Because now, everything had changed. This was no longer just about observation. This was about responsibility. Elena walked out. Right on time. But today, her expression was different. Tired. Not physically. Emotionally. They gave me a final warning, she said as she sat down. Marcus nodded slowly. I figured they would. Elena looked straight ahead. If they see me out here again after today, I'm done. Silence. Marcus felt the weight of that. Because now, her kindness had a price. You don't have to do this, he said. Elena shook her head. I know. Then she looked at him. And I'm still going to. That answer hit harder than anything else. Because she wasn't choosing kindness when it was easy. She was choosing it when it cost her something. Later that afternoon, everything escalated. Security approached again. But this time, they weren't asking. You need to leave. Now. Marcus stayed seated. Calm. Before he could respond, Elena stepped forward. He's not going anywhere, she said. The guard sighed in frustration. We've warned you already. And I heard you, Elena replied. But I'm not going to pretend he doesn't matter. More people began to gather. Employees watching. Whispers spreading. Phones slowly coming out. Miss Cruz, another manager stepped in. This is your final notice. Elena didn't move. Didn't hesitate. Then I guess I'm done, she said quietly. The words landed like silence before a storm. Because in that moment, she chose. Not safety. Not comfort. But humanity. Marcus slowly stood up. For the first time, not as an observer, but as someone who was about to change everything. Enough, he said. His voice was calm, but firm. Everyone turned. The guards looked confused. The managers looked irritated. Sir, you need to. I said enough. Something about his tone stopped them. Marcus reached into his pocket, pulled out something small. Simple. A company access card. He held it up. Silence. Confusion turned into realization. Because printed clearly on that card was a name they all recognized. Marcus Reid. The air changed instantly. No way, someone whispered. The manager stepped back, color draining from his face. Sir? I didn't realize. Marcus looked directly at him. That's the problem. Marcus straightened his posture, removed his worn hood, ran a hand through his hair, and suddenly, he didn't look like a homeless man anymore. He looked like exactly who he was. The CEO. I've been here for days, Marcus continued. Watching, listening, learning. He gestured around. This is what you've created. Silence filled the space. People ignored, disrespected, pushed aside. Then he turned to Elena. And one person, his voice softened slightly, chose to do the opposite. Elena stood frozen, tears already forming. You, she whispered. Marcus nodded. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I didn't know. And that's exactly why this matters. Marcus interrupted gently. He stepped closer. You treated me with respect when you thought I had nothing to offer you. Elena's eyes filled. You defended me when it could cost you everything. He paused. That's not just kindness. That's character. Marcus turned back to the crowd. Effective immediately, he said. We are making changes. Managers stiffened. Staff stood still. Leadership will be retrained. Policies will be rewritten. And respect, he looked around slowly, will no longer be optional. Then he turned back to Elena. And as for you, the entire building seemed to hold its breath. I would like to offer you a full scholarship. Elena's eyes widened. For your education. Tears fell freely now. And a position within this company. Marcus smiled slightly. Helping us build something better. Elena covered her mouth. Overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Marcus nodded. You don't have to. Because sometimes, gratitude doesn't need words. Weeks later, the same sidewalk. But everything looked different. Employees walked slower. More aware. More present. Near the entrance, a new sign stood. Respect is not a privilege. It is a standard. And standing near the doors was Elena, not as someone struggling to be seen, but as someone helping others feel seen. A new employee walked past a man sitting outside. Looked uncertain. Elena gently stopped him. Hey, she said. Take a second. The employee hesitated, then nodded, because now, the culture had changed. And it all started with one choice. 3 months later, the cold winter had softened into early spring. But the biggest change wasn't the weather. It was Reid Global. The building still stood tall, glass shining, people moving in and out. But something felt different. People slowed down. They greeted each other. They noticed things they used to ignore. Near the entrance, no one was pushed away anymore. No one was treated like they didn't belong. Because now, there was awareness. At the center of that change was Elena Cruz. Her life had taken a turn she never expected. She was now enrolled in school, pursuing her dream in social work. Fully supported, fully focused. But she didn't leave the company behind. Marcus had created a new role for her. Community engagement lead. Her job? To ensure that no one, inside or outside the company, was ever treated like they didn't matter. And she took that role seriously. Every morning, she stood near the entrance. Not as security, not as authority, but as a reminder. A reminder that kindness is a choice. She spoke to people, helped where she could, and most importantly, she paid attention, because that's where it all started. As for Marcus, he changed too. Not in title, not in power, but in perspective. He no longer relied only on reports, or data, or numbers. He showed up, quietly, unexpectedly, sometimes walking through his own building without announcement, observing, listening, making sure the culture stayed aligned with the values he believed in. Because now he understood something deeply. A company doesn't fail because of strategy. It fails because of people forgetting how to treat other people. What happened at Reid Global didn't stay there. Other companies noticed. Stories spread, not about profit, not about success, but about something more powerful. Humanity. Employees began treating customers differently. Managers led with more understanding. People started paying attention to the small things. Because one act of kindness had created a chain reaction. And that's how change really happens. Not through rules, not through fear, but through example. The truth is, most people think they need something big to make a difference. More money, more power, more influence. But this story proves something else. Sometimes, all it takes is a moment to stop, a moment to see someone, a moment to care. Elena didn't know who Marcus was. She didn't expect anything in return. She simply chose to be kind. And that choice changed everything. Stories like this remind us that extraordinary kindness exists all around us. If this story touched your heart, please like this video. It helps more people discover these inspiring stories. Subscribe for more emotional and inspiring stories that restore faith in humanity. And most importantly, look for opportunities in your own life to be someone's unexpected blessing. So let me ask you one last question. What act of kindness will you perform this week? Tell me in the comments below. Thank you for watching. And remember, you have the power to change someone's entire world.